New videos every day. Psyche Truth. Life, wisdom.
Hi, I'm Catherine. Thank you for watching. This is an absolute beginner ballet video. So I created this video for people who have no experience in ballet and are interested in knowing the basics, as well as for people who might have taken it as a kid and they're just getting back into it after taking some time off and just want a refresher. It's funny, but I actually did not take ballet as a kid. I came to it a little bit later, and my dream wasn't to be a ballerina, it was to be an astronaut. But you have to be realistic, you have to be practical, so I started doing ballet dance instead. So I was just wondering, what did you guys want to be when you grow up, and have those dreams changed? I'm just curious, but I'm very happy to be here doing ballet now. So we're just going to start with some basic moves, learn some terminology. So we'll go to our bar, or in our case, our chair that will substitute as our ballet bar. Let's get started. All right, so one of the very basic concepts of ballet is the posture, is the concept of turnout. This is sort of an unnatural thing for our bodies. Most of what we do, most of the movements that we do in our daily lives, it's very front to back. We walk forward, we walk backward. Everything sort of works in this plane. And what ballet does is challenge you to work more side to side. So turnout is the idea of, instead of a neutral position being just toes forward, standing straight, we're actually turning out our feet from our hips and working in the side-to-side plane. Now, most people are not born with that kind of flexibility in our hips. Most of us do not just swivel out and be perfect ballerinas. We have to work on it. So the way to find your base level of turnout, one good way to do it is to start with your feet together and actually keep your feet where they are, but do the opposite of a turned out position. So you're actually thinking of rotating your legs inward. If you look at my knees, you can see them sort of start to face each other. This is the opposite of what you want. But from here, if you just engage your abs and swivel from your heels, you can find where they naturally will want to go. And this is a good diagnostic, because if you just step right into that turned out position, it's very easy to fake more rotation. And if you look from the side, if I fake that rotation, my knee is tracking over here while my toe is going a totally opposite direction. So that's a recipe for disaster and injury. So what we're trying to do is work with the turnout that we have, and then by practicing ballet, further turnout will come. So you practice correctly, and from that you get the increased turnout. It's not the opposite. You don't start with increased turnout and hope to work correctly someday. The improvements will come, but for now, just work with what you have. It might be something like 90 degrees, but this is the basic principle of a ballet posture, is the turnout. Now from there, if you can find a mirror, you might want to look to see, after you found this turnout, that your hip is in line with your shoulder, and that your hip is also in line with your ankles. So everything should be in one straight line if you look from the side. Now, if you're forcing your turnout, you might notice a tendency to be arching your back a little too much. This is caused, you see that? You see how the lower back is wanting to come up? Now I have to think of really pulling, almost using my belly button to pull up my pelvis here. So I have a nice straight spine. I always think of pulling up through my abs, but also being very broad in the shoulders. Sometimes if you have started to go to ballet class, or you remember your teacher saying this, they always give the cue, pull up, pull up. Sometimes what they mean is to engage your abs and to have good posture, but sometimes pull up is interpreted as a pull back, and you start seeing this, and that's another kind of strain that we want to avoid. So we want to just think proud, tall, think, you're a ballerina, be tall, Be confident. Think chest forward, think heart forward. Have your shoulders over your hips. Work with the turnout you have. And actually, we've arrived at the first position of ballet. There are 5 basic positions, 4 that are regularly used in classical ballet. But if we turn to the front, this is our first position in ballet. Heels together, legs are straight, using our maximum natural turnout. Something you might want to notice too is that your foot is firmly planted on the floor. So the ball of your foot, you want the joint right behind the big toe to be on the floor. You want the joint behind the baby toe to be on the floor, and you want your heel to be on the floor. So you almost want to think of each foot as a tripod. So we have our 2 tripods firmly planted. If you feel like your pinky toe joint is starting to roll off the floor, that also might be a sign that you're forcing your turnout because your arches are falling in and you're pronating. So if that happens, just reduce your turnout and work from a more correct position. So here's our ballet first position. And if we want to include the arms, we can move it away from our belly button, nice and rounded. So the trick to ballet arms, we always want there to be a nice curve here. I think the best visual aid is to think from your shoulder to your elbow is rotating inward. So your elbow's up, but if we just left it like that, that would be a very strange ballet, somewhat monkey-like. So we have this internal rotation of the upper arm, but to contrast it, we also think of rotating this lower arm upward. So this is moving this way, while this is moving this way. And again, it's one of those things that you have to be thinking, but it doesn't necessarily, you don't see movement. It's a still move, but it's full of energy. And that's pretty much one of the secrets of ballet, is even though something is still, it's always full of energy. So we take our arms here. Here's our first position. We have our first position feet with our tripods firmly planted on the ground. Stomach is pulled up, shoulders are down, neck is long, eyes are high. Don't look at the floor. The eyes staying high will help keep your posture tall. And then we have our nice rounded arms, rotation here, rotation up here, graceful fingers right across from our belly button. And from here, this is where we can do a lot of the work at bar. Now that we've covered first position, I do want to touch up on the other ones, the other 4 positions. Second position is simply sliding out one of your feet from first position so that there's about a foot's worth of distance between each of your 2 feet. Now again, you have to concentrate on pulling that pelvis up so that your lower back does not sag. You also want to make sure that you're always rotating. You want to constantly feel like you're rotating out your legs. So even if you're happy with the way your feet are turned out here, you can see if you let it go that your arches start to sink and you're just not supported. So you always want to think of your legs as almost like 2 barber poles. With the spirals, they're always spiraling out and up. So here I am, firmly planted, pushing away the floor with my feet. Nice turned out, constantly working. And again, we're going to use those nice graceful arms. We can take them from the first position, right from the belly button, and just bring them out to the sides. Now, if your hands are in the correct position, you will be able to see your hands just a little bit in your peripheral vision. You don't want them too far behind. You don't want them too far forward. You want to just be able to see them. And the order should be of height, should be shoulders first, elbows a little lower, and hands a little bit lower than the elbows. And you'll find that if you use that imagery of the rotation that we talked about. So this is your second position. Nice rounded arms here, nice proud chest. And now we go to third position, which really is more of a practice position than anything. It's not typically used in performance. But if we take our basic turnout, say it's at 90 degrees, we just move that front heel, we move one of our heels towards the arch of the other foot. So we're still working in our turnout, but now we're adding the element of crisscrossing the legs ever so slightly. This is used as a training tool for fifth position, which I'll show in a little bit. So these are the legs of third position. I'm not going to focus too much more on the arms right now. I did want to give you a sense of the sensation that you should feel when you are lifting your arms, but there are several combinations that you can use that the arms will come into play. But for today's purposes, just the introductory information, I want to focus on the main foot positions, because most teachers at the bar or in center will let you do most exercises in second. If things get too confusing, most teachers, even at advanced levels, will let you always come back to second here. So for our purposes, this is your third position. Fourth position, now fourth position, if you're working from third, is going to just slide forward again about a foot's width. And so here, this is a very nice, comfortable fourth position since I'm working with that modified stance here. The key thing here is to make sure your hips stay square. And what that means is that if there's a wall in front of you, both hips are equal distance from that wall. The natural tendency in this position is to want to sort of twist out here so that this front hip is forward. But we have to fight that. This is where stretching is important, to make sure you have the flexibility in our hips to maintain that square position. So that's our fourth position, foot. And here's our fifth position. This is a difficult thing to work from. This is why we have that modified third position for starting out. But once this gets a little bit too easy, or maybe you can turn out too easily from this third position, you can set that heel in a little bit more. And ideally, if you have perfect turnout, you should have toe heel and toe heel touching. Now, most of us are working with less than ideal turnout, at least in the beginning. So again, it's okay if they're not completely touching heel to toe. You just want to make sure that those hips are square, both hip bones are forward, and that you're always pulling out of your pelvis. You never want to sink down into your legs. Again, even though you're just standing still, it's a very active standing. So you're pushing away that floor, you're stretching your knees, thinking of straightening your legs. I always think of squeezing my inner thighs together. That helps keep my legs nice and tight. And then also, I like to think of my legs not ending at my hips, but almost ending at my rib cage. And this image helps me maintain nice long lines and helps me lift out of my pelvis instead of sinking into it. Helps me lift out and be tall, and helps my spine elongate. So this is your fifth position. If you want to experiment with the arms here, since this is such a classic position, you can take your arms from first that we learned in the beginning, and just move them right above your head. And similar to second position, you want to be able to see your hands in your periphery. So even though I'm looking forward, I can still see my hands sort of dangling here. And when you move your hands above your head, there is a tendency to want to crunch your shoulders, so you have to use your upper back to pull those shoulders down. Again, ballet is all about grace and beauty and confidence and exuding your inner light. So just carry that with you in your posture, and you'll probably be headed in the right direction. So now we've covered our 5 basic positions. From here, I just want to touch on the basic exercises that you might do in these positions. This is something that you'll find in ballet classes from absolute beginner to expert. You never stop doing these. So the first thing we're going to learn is plie. And we're going to start from first position. So we go back to our natural turnout. If you want to find it again, you can start from that internal rotation, and on a nice exhale, engaging your abs, just swivel out there and just work from there, wherever your feet land, whether it's more rotated or less. Just pull out of your legs. Now a plie, quite simply, is a bend. So we're just bending our legs and up. In other sports and other practices, this is just called a squat. But because we're in that turnout position, we get to use French, and now it's a plie. So when we use our legs here, you want to squeeze in as you come up, and you want the down to almost be easy. You almost just want it to be a natural melting. Now, it doesn't mean to let it go. That just means to let your knees fall. You're still supporting through your hips, but the effort should really be the squeeze up. You should feel your inner thighs working here. Now, if you do this enough, if you do this every day, you will more than likely find an increase in your natural turnout, just because you're employing those muscles in the correct way. So plie from first is here. And you notice that my heels stay on the ground. You might find that it's hard to control that pelvis, it's hard to control that movement in that turned out position, and your back might be out a little bit, your rear might be out, but do your best to pull up and out and just work slowly. And even this slow work is challenging, just to maintain balance, to make sure each leg is bending equally. So that's your plie in first position. Second position is just the same. We have our heels on the ground. We have our turnout muscles engaged. You're gonna feel it about right there. It's right in the center of your bum right there. But you're not gonna feel it as much on the larger glute muscles as you would doing other sports. It's going to feel kind of small, but it is going to work. So here we have our plie here. So if I let go of that sensation, if I ever let go of my turnout muscles, what happens is I start out nice, and then as I plie, my knees start going forward because I'm not supporting this anymore. I'm not even trying to rotate my legs outward. So I have to think knees back towards the wall behind me. In fact, what I'm doing now is a great exercise if you want to just work on that turnout, on that functional turnout. You can place a hand behind your legs and just wing your legs out like a butterfly. And in the same way that you went down, the same way you came up in first position, same way you come up in second, just squeezing those inner thighs and pushing the floor away. All right, so next is our plie in third position, or your fifth position if you're comfortable moving that heel over. Again, just making sure your hips stay forward and that you're not twisting at all. Same idea here. You just want to make sure that you're bringing that pelvis down neutrally. For most of us don't scoop our pelvis too far forward. The tendency is to swoop it back like this. And that's just not healthy. It's not particularly attractive, and it certainly isn't ballet. So we always want to make sure that we're engaging the muscles around our hips, around our glutes. And as we go up, we feel those outer thighs working to maintain our rotation. And again, when we come up, squeezing the inner thighs and pulling up through our abdomen. Now to fourth position, again, we just slide that foot forward, keeping the rotation, whether you're going from third or fifth, putting about a foot's width distance in between each of your feet. Same thing here. The tendency is definitely to favor one side over the other on fourth position. So just always check in the mirror, make sure that your hips are square and that you're not rotating out. Fourth position is very important if you plan on doing any kind of pirouettes. Really, all of the positions are the basics from which more advanced moves are built. So if you're serious about ballet, or you just want to be able to work correctly and prevent injury, get a good grasp on these basic positions and everything else will become so much easier. From here, I think we should do tendus. This is again something that everyone's going to do, whether you're a beginner or a professional. So we'll start from first. And the idea of a tendu, one has to understand that in ballet, everything sort of originates from the feet. It's sort of opposite from maybe what is even anatomically correct, but certainly it's different from what most of us are used to in most kind of sports and athletic exercise. So what I mean from it originating from the feet is that a tendu is simply a slide out to a pointed foot from any of these 5 basic positions. Now, I can easily stick my foot out there any old way. I can get it there in several ways. But what a true tendu is to use the resistance of the floor. You want to push your toes against it, and you're almost fighting yourself to get to that end result. So if I go slowly, before I reach that full pointed foot, I should reach this position, where my toes are still on the floor, my foot is arched, but my toes aren't quite pointed yet. So I just keep working through the floor, through my whole foot, until I reach that fully pointed position. And I want my heel to be forward. I want to be using full turnout, so you can see the difference. This is my leg turned in its socket, and then I use my muscles to rotate it outward. And the same thing coming back, it's the exact opposite coming back. So instead of just, plopping your leg back into the center, you want to work through the floor, through the toes, then drag the heel in. Heel is on the floor, good. And now we come in all the way to the center. So those same principles will apply in second position. So really that was a tendu from first position to second. So that's a common exercise. We could do a plie in first, come up, tendu to second, place our foot down, and stand in second. And that's a ballet exercise all its own. So one thing we should touch on is how to tendu from third or fifth to fourth position. Same basic principles apply, it's just a little bit more difficult since we're in this overcrossed, turned out position. So when we went from first to second, we worked through the floor, we went through our toes to the full point, stretching the top of our foot, and brought it back the same way we came. Same thing here, you want to stretch through the toes. I think it helps to think of leading with the inner part of your inner heel, but also some teachers use the image of pushing a penny with your toes, pushing them from the inside of your foot until you reach that full point. So for most people, I think it's good to aim right across from your right hip. So we want to push through that ankle, feeling our inner thigh doing the work. We reach that demi-point position. That's what it's called when it's not quite pointed. It's demi. It's somewhat pointed. Demi-point here, full point, back to demi, and then you're sliding those coins on the back of your foot now. So you're directing those toes in towards your body. And then you land back where you started. And all of this sounds so very basic, but really it's extremely difficult to do correctly, which is why ballet dancers continue to take class even when they are professionals. The work is never done because these movements are they're so different from what the body wants to do on a daily basis. So just one more time, we're going to do that tendu from fifth position just so you can see. So let me just demonstrate the wrong way. So the wrong way would be, I want my toe to point out there. So I'm going to slide and I'm going to point. So there's a few things wrong there. First, I did not use the resistance of the floor. So there's no energy in my leg. I'm just taking a step really without transferring my weight. So I want to keep the energy flowing by using the resistance. The resistance makes it exciting. So here we go. use the resistance here, point, and you see that you can actually see the side of my foot because I'm still utilizing those turnout muscles even though my foot is facing forward. In the incorrect version, I just stuck my foot out. You only see the front of my foot, not turned out. Not quite ballet. So again, it'll take a lot of time to get these positions into your body. It's totally normal for it to take a long time. It's totally normal to feel like you improve some days and then you're back at square one the next day. Everybody goes through this, but I think it's really rewarding. It's rewarding work. Just take it slowly and work correctly. That's the way you'll see improvement. Well, thank you so much for watching. I know that was a lot of information, but with a little patience, just work with love, work with joy, and work consistently, and you'll see results, and you'll be able to enjoy all that ballet has to offer. In the meantime, please subscribe to our channel. I have future videos coming out. I'd love to hear some feedback on this one. But until then, have a great day and happy ballet.